All right, guys, we're back. So we're going to go ahead and we talked about routing on the FortiGate. We had two sessions last week, like I said, you know, uh, to investigate and see how routing works on it. And I hope you guys took a lot of value from our sessions. Now we're going to go ahead and jump into what the routing monitor and routing attributes are, and what specific roles that they play with trying to understand what routing is within the FortiGate or FortiOS, sort of say. So let's go ahead and jump right in, right? So whenever we were talking about, I showed you guys the routing table or what have you. I showed you guys what the routing table monitor looks like, right? Went in, we saw how it looks and what it is, right? But let's break down what we actually saw, right? So routing table monitor, right, is going to display only active routes. It's not going to display any routes that you may have disabled, right, at the current moment, right? And with the routing table, it's a separate routing table for the policy routes. It's a separate routing table for the ISDB, the Internet Service Database routes. Okay. All right. So just keep that in mind, right? And so, right, it's showing active routes for all of these different things, right? Um, you'll see the directly connected subnets, right? So what does that mean? And I want you guys to understand what directly connected or connected subnet means, right? It means when a subnet that is assigned to a FortiGate's interface, a route to the subnet is automatically added with the connected, right? Connected label shown in the type column. Okay, you guys see that? If you guys see it on the slide, you'll see it says connected. That means that my Kivia configured maybe port 1 with the 10.200.1.1/24 address, right? So what the layer 3 device is going to do is say, hey, I'm going to go ahead and program, right, in my routing table, this subnet, not the interface, but this subnet, and I know how to get there because it's actually configured on this device. That is going to be a connected route, okay? All right? And so one thing to keep in mind, right, and it's not worldwide, it's just for Fortinet, right? If the interface, right, if the interface is up, right, you'll see it in that routing table. If the interface is down and there's no link established, the route is not going to be added to the routing table. Okay. All right. What other routes
Yes.
besides static routes are we going to see? Right. Besides policy routes and ISDB routes, we're going to see dynamic routes. You guys saw that last week. You're going to see dynamic routes for those dynamic routing protocols that I showed you guys last week. So you'll see routes for BGP, OSPF, right? You'll see all of those things, and you'll see the type in the type section within the routing table, okay, or the routing table monitor. All right. And again, just like I stated, what routes won't be shown or displayed in the routing table monitor: inactive routes, right? So routes that maybe the interface is down, right? The link is down, or the gateway has been detected dead by the link monitor feature, right? It's going to be considered as inactive. So the layer 3 device, the FortiGate, is going to say, hey, I'm not even going to add this to my routing table because there's no need to send traffic out if I'm using the link monitor feature and say I can't reach it. No need, right? Also, right, and one thing I didn't show you guys is standby routes, right? So your backup routes. So these are duplicate routes, active routes that you probably have, right? But they're exactly what they are: a standby route, just in case the primary route is not available, right? And so maybe you have a static route, right, with a administrative distance, right? Because less is better, right? The lower the number, the more trusted the routing table trusted, right? So static routes have an AD of 10, right? If we wanted to go ahead and create a standby route, we would go ahead and create that standby route with the same destination, right, and gateway, and well, different gateway, but it'll go ahead and have a AD of maybe 20, right? But it has to be higher, right? And this being is because it's going to go ahead and it's not going to be installed, but if something ever happens to that primary route, it'll automatically install that. But while that primary route is active, it will not install it into the routing table. Okay? All right, let's go ahead and keep going. Any questions?
None so far.
All right.
No.
All right, excellent, excellent. So, and I showed you guys a little bit of it last week, right? The routing monitor, right? It provides an extended route lookup, right, for the routing monitor, right, or your routing table, so to say, right? And so you can go ahead and check both your policy routes. You can check your regular routing table, right? If, right, let's say Don pops in and just says, hey, let me just check to see if this route exists. I probably have a routing table on my Fortigate of 300 routes. Let me just search this, right? And you can search it. If the network that you're searching for has a route that matches the policy route, it'll go ahead and jump you to the policy route page within the GUI, right? So it's real simple. It's real intuitive. That's one thing I like about FortiOS, right? And of course, also you can go ahead and specify the destination port as well, right? Whenever you're trying to go ahead and whenever you try to go ahead and input your search criteria within the route lookup, okay, within the routing monitor. Okay, so you can put in that, you can put in your destination port, source IP, protocol, source interface, etc. You can put all these things whenever you're looking up things within your routing monitor. All right. Let's keep going. All right. So each of the routes listed in the routing table includes several attributes with associated values, right? All right, let's talk about the network column. The network column lists the destination IP address and the subnet mask that will be matched. The interface column lists the interface that will be used to deliver that packet. Let me say that again. The network column lists the destination IP address and the subnet mask, right? If we look at the network section, that will be matched, right? So there's packets coming in to the FortiGate, right? And it's looking from a layer 3 perspective, right? It already de-encapsulated, right? De-encapsulated the packet and it said, oh, I see at layer 3 we have a source and destination. Me being a layer 3 device, I am worried just about the destination. I don't care about the source just yet. Where do I need to send it? And do I know how to send it, where to send it, etc. Right? So that's where the network portion comes in. Okay. Next, the interface section is going to tell me, right? For that destination, where do I send it to? Right? So your routing table, right, is going to show what interface it's going to be sent out of, right? Right? Or properly speaking, which interface will be used to deliver the packet. Okay? Right? And of course, you guys see other columns. Distance, metric, priority. And we will talk about that later, right? These are additional attributes that are used to make various routing selection decisions, right? And I'm going to have fun with you guys talking about this one because this doesn't just apply to the NSE4. This applies to every vendor. Every vendor, right, has to abide to administrative distance, a metric, priority, okay? So I'm going to make sure, and I'm probably going to get on you guys' nerves, I'm going to make sure you guys understand how to read a routing table, how to configure a routing table, and what it means, right, for packets to be sent by a layer 3 device. Okay?
Yep.
All right. So, first thing first, distance, right? Administrative distance to be correct, right? What is it, right? It's a number that is used by routers to determine which route is preferred for a particular destination. Administrative distance is a number that is used by routers to determine which route is preferred for a particular destination. If there are two routes to the same destination, the one with the smaller distance is considered better and used for routing. Okay, so look at my slide. We're going to take a step out of this PowerPoint for a second. If we look at this slide, we see the distance, right? We have a distance, administrative distance of 10, and we had administrative distance of 0, right? With the sentence saying the one with the smaller distance is considered better and is used for routing. I don't want you guys to look at the networks. I just want you guys to focus on the distance section. Which one is a smaller distance and considered better? The administrative distance that's 10 or the administrative distance that's 0?
0.
Say it again.
0.
Excellent. Excellent. I want you guys to remember that, right? And why is that the case, right? So it being a smaller number is saying to the router is that I trust you more than I trust these other routes. If you have a higher number, right? So OSPF is 110, right? OSPF being 110, okay, I've learned a route by OSPF, but if we have a static route, 10, I'm going to trust that route more than I do a dynamic route, okay? Right, and because the router is saying, that was actually configured by somebody, right? I'm assuming that they know what they're doing, right? And they plan the network properly. I trust this because they're telling me they know where they want to send their packets versus us learning it dynamically. Does that make sense?
Can you say that one more time?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So, right, with administrative distance, right, the router is going to say, right, I'm going to trust a route with a lower administrative distance, right, versus one with a higher distance. Okay. So if I have a dynamic routing protocol, OSPF, that has 110, right, that has administrative distance of 110, maybe for a 10.10.0.0/16 network. If my Kivia configures a static route, right, for 10.10.0.0/16 network, she configures that statically. Static routes have an administrative distance of 10. The routing table within any layer 3 device is going to say static routes have an administrative distance of 10. I'm going to trust that more than I do a dynamic routing table, right, or a dynamic routing protocol, because you have the administrator configure this with, of course, the layer 3 device, assuming that you know your network. So you place this here for a reason because you know where you want to send the packets.
Okay.
Okay.
So just to make sure I kind of understand rather than kind of in this instance, it will take the distance of 10, like looking at this graph.
Absolutely not.
No.
No. Lower is better. 0 versus 10, 0 wins.
Even if it's static, right?
0 versus 10, 0 wins.
Okay. I kind of got confused what you just said. When you said this, like the static, if
So I said static versus a dynamic routing protocol. And we haven't gotten to the discussions of the different values for administrative distance. That's where you were getting confused.
Okay, cool. All right.
Okay. So, and that's why I said just focus on the numbers. 10 versus 0. 0 is better.
Okay, gotcha.
10 versus 110. 10 is better. 10 versus 50. 10 is better. 110 versus 200.
110 is better.
There you go. Okay. So by default, right? Routes learned, right? And this is a little excerpt, right? Routes learned through RIP, right? Have a higher distance AD, right? Have a higher administrative distance value than routes learned through the OSPF protocol. OSPF is considered more accurate than RIP, right? Keep this in mind. Every administrative distance value is going to maybe different, right, per vendor, but they're mostly the same. Okay. All right. So for the exam, I want you guys to write this down. Here are the following values, right, for the default distances on a Fortigate. For directly connected routes, they have a value of 0. Okay.
Yep.
For For a DHCP gateway route, they have a administrative distance or AD value of 5. Okay. Static routes have an AD value of 10. Okay. External BGP routes have an AD value of 20. OSPF routes have an AD value of 110. RIP routes have a AD value of 120. Internal BGP routes, so iBGP, right? They have an AD of 200. You need to understand that for the exam. Okay.
And which one was that? That was 220?
That was for 200 was the internal BGP route.
Okay.
That's
I think you said
and
one was
the
for 220.
I said 120.
Oh, 120 is RIP, right?
Yep, 120 is RIP and 200 is internal BGP.
Which one was external something? I think you said.
Yep, external BGP is just 20.
Oh, it's 20. Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
I posted a screenshot in the chat of them, I believe. I got it from Fortinet Institute.
There
Oh,
we
I
go.
see.
There
Awesome.
we go. There we go. That's perfect. All right, let's go ahead and move on. Let's talk about metric. So what is metric used for? So the metric, right, it's used to go ahead and determine the best route to a destination, right? When dealing with routes that are learned through dynamic routing protocols, right? So with the same example, right? If we have two routes that have the same administrative distance, right? What's going to be our tiebreaker? Our tiebreaker is our metric value, right? And that's used to go ahead and break that tie, right? Because maybe AD it's the same when you go ahead and see, does it have a different metric? It does. All right, I'm going to choose the one with the lowest metrics to be choose to route those packets. Okay. Let me, somebody's popping in. All right, and actually, let me show you guys this. All right, so, because I don't have that PowerPoint slide there, right? Right, so if distance, right, if we're looking at the routing table, if the distance, right, they have a tie, right, and you won't be able to even capture this within the GUI. You would have to see this within diag or debug, what have you. If we learn about two routes dynamically, right, that go into the same destination, have the same AD, the layer 3 device is going to say, hey, which one has the lowest metric? And we'll go ahead and install that one. Okay. So I just want you guys to understand that. All right. Does that make sense?
Yep.
All right. Any questions? One major thing I want to say about metrics, right, is the metric, right? And this is globally, this is not just with Fortinet. The metric value changes per routing protocol. Okay, so the metric for OSPF is not going to be the same as BGP, nor is it going to be the same as EIGRP, nor is it going to be the same as RIP. Okay, because they use different methods to use to calculate the best path. Okay, make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
I have a question. So do any of the dynamic routing protocols, well, you probably just answered it. Does OSPF and RIP have the same metric? And then BGP 0?
They do not. They
Oh.
do not. They have different metrics because they use, so OSPF uses cost versus EIGRP and RIP, which EIGRP is the is the son of RIP, right? So it's a successor of it. Funny that I said that, but it uses bandwidth, like bandwidth and delay has the metric, right? And that's the total. That's a total composite cost metric, right? That's how they choose the best metric, right? So it's different for each routing protocol. So that's why it's the AD is going to be different, right? And within that same routing protocol, the metric value is going to be different. The lower is better. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So now let's talk about priority, right? So same example, right? We have multiple static routes, right? That have the same administrative distance, right? And they're both installed into the routing table, right? How can we tell? How can we tell the layer 3 device to say, hey, which route to use to route packets? Okay. If you guys can see under advanced options, we can use the priority section, right? So we can go ahead and configure, right, a route with a priority number, right, or a decimal value, right, and it's going to go ahead and take the lower value, which will always be preferred. Okay. The priority attribute is only applicable to static routes. You can't configure a priority on a dynamic routing protocol. Okay. And again, this is configured under advanced options within the GUI. All right. By default, all static routes have a priority of 0. That's why, of course, I said in the beginning, if we have 2 static routes to the same destination with the same AD, they're both going to get installed into the routing table. Okay. So you can use the priority section to say which one you want to use. Okay. All right. Any questions?
No.
Okay. With that being said, I have 2 questions. All right. So, first question. The priority attribute applies to which type of route? Is it A, static, or is it B, dynamic?
Static. And
Make up for
Okay.
next week.
Oh,
All right.
static, sorry. Yeah.
A, static. Okay, that's correct. Which attribute does Fortigate use to determine the best route for a packet if it matches multiple dynamic routes that have the same distance? Let me say the question again. Which attribute does the Fortigate use to determine the best route for a packet if it matches multiple dynamic routes that have the same distance? Is it A, priority, or is it B, metric?
B, metric.
metric.
Metric?
Yep.
Positive?
Positive.
You guys are correct. Okay, last question. Which static route attribute does not appear on the GUI routing monitor? Is it A, distance, or is it B, priority?
Wait, can you ask that question?
Yes. Which static route attribute does not appear on the GUI routing monitor? Is it A, distance, or B, priority?
B,
So-
priority.
B, priority, yeah.
You sure?
Yes, the
Positive.
distance and the type shows up in the image.
Say that again, Markivia.
Oh, I was saying the distance shows up and the type and the interface. and the
Interface, yeah. In the gateway. It doesn't show the metric.
All right.
It
You
doesn't
guys
show
are
the
correct.
priority.
It doesn't show the priority. It does show the metric.
Oh yeah, I mean it doesn't show the priority.
Okay, no worries. All right, guys. You guys are good to go. I will see you guys in the next section.
I just want to tell you all,